Okay, this is a short video that will walk you through the trigger chain exercise and hopefully will help you be able to fill it out yourself. So we see in the upper right corner the circle with the word trigger under it. That's the starting point for this exercise. The trigger is the event that has caused the emotional reaction, or appears to have caused the emotional reaction. Keep in mind that the trigger chain can be used for yourself or for somebody else when trying to understand sort of exactly what has gone on, what is at the root of the problem. So for this example, we will just pick a trigger that may have affected someone negatively. Let's say that the trigger was criticism from your boss. So I'm mad because my boss said that I don't work hard enough. So that is the trigger. My boss said I don't work hard enough. Now, what is the message from what the boss said? Keeping in mind that the message that is sent is not necessarily the message that we receive. We receive a message through our own filter. So we have to identify what was the actual message. So don't necessarily look at the words that were used unless those particular words have meaning for you, which we will get to. So let's say in this case, the boss says that I'm not working hard enough. Okay, for the message, we could ask ourselves a question like, okay, so if someone is not working hard enough, what are they? They are, what, lazy? They're not good at their job. They might be, what, stupid, or, I mean, any number of things we could fill in the blanks there. So when the boss says, you're not working hard enough, we're not necessarily hearing, you're not working hard enough. We might be hearing, you're not good at this. So we then go to the next box, which would be the personal meaning. So you might hear somebody say something to you, but it may not have meaning to you personally if you don't have a history with that particular message. So in this case, we say that the boss has criticized me. The message that I got from that was that I'm not good at my job. And the personal meaning for me might be, if I'm not good at my job, I'm just not worth much at all. For example, some people have that kind of perspective that what they do defines who they are or what their value is as a person. How other people see them is binding, so to speak. You may have heard me say that. So the personal meaning might be, if my boss says I'm not good at something, then I'm not good at something. If my boss says I'm lazy, I am lazy. Like, there's no sort of evaluation of as to whether that is true or not. So that personal meaning is the real trigger. So the trigger that we started with, that's the surface level trigger. But the message that comes from that trigger brings alive this personal meaning, which serves as the real trigger. So let's say that the personal meaning that I've got from this experience is that I'm no good. So not that I'm no good at my job, but that I myself am no good. So the next box asks, have we experienced previous similar events? So has anyone else sent me that message or given me that meaning before, that I'm no good as a person? Have I felt that way before? Of course, we all have from time to time. You don't need to fill out a full exhaustive laundry list of all of those events. Maybe one or two that are most similar to this current situation. Or you could look at one or two that stand out the most, even if on the surface they're not particularly similar to this situation. So have I ever felt worthless or no good at something before? Yes. What was that situation? And try, if you can, to sort of go as far back as possible. Don't just think of last week, but maybe think of things that have happened with you as a child, particularly things that may have happened with you and your caregivers or people in that role, whether it was a babysitter or a teacher or somebody from the church or wherever. Somebody in that role of authority and caregiver that sort of had sent this message to you, that carried with it the meaning that you were no good or that you were worthless. Now we'll go to the next box, which is what the brain thinks is happening. Now this is the most important part. So we've had this trigger, you're not working hard enough. The message is you're not good at this job. The personal meaning is you're not good, period. You're worthless or no good. Have I felt like that before? Yeah, there's experiences A, B, and C. So what does the brain think is happening? The brain thinks that experiences A, B, and C are happening. It's what I call an emotional illusion. So the brain has sort of been transported in time away from this current situation and is reacting to something that has happened before under the flawed understanding that that is happening right now. Now, maybe that sounds confusing, but if we think of it, I'll give you an example. So if my boss says, you're no good, you're a worthless person, that in and itself doesn't really carry a lot of weight with it, because who is he to me? There's no danger to me if my boss doesn't like me. But what if earlier in my life, I got that same message, even if that wasn't the message that was intended, from somebody whose role was to protect me, to take care of me, to care about me and love me? What if they sent me this message that I was no good or that I was worthless? Early in life, messages like that actually are threatening, because if I'm a small child and no one's going to take care of me, then I'm in actual literal danger. So if that's what my brain thinks is happening, if this trigger has really triggered memories of these earlier events, that's what the brain thinks is happening. It doesn't think, oh, your boss is telling you that you don't work hard enough. It thinks, oh, your caregiver or someone in that role is rejecting you, and because of that, you are going to die. I know that sounds dramatic, but if you're filling this out, then we've had this conversation before and you know where I'm coming from with that, from the attachment perspective. So this is an important step, because we realize that the brain is what is driving our emotional reaction. The brain is what is giving meaning to the incident that we are currently experiencing. So if we can understand what the brain thinks is happening, we can then understand its reaction to what is happening. And that's where we validate the brain's experience and say, I see where you're coming from. You think this is happening. If it was happening the way you think it's happening, then your reaction makes perfectly sense and makes perfect sense. And we don't sort of have to fight against the brain. We have to say, we say to the brain, okay, I get it. I get where you're coming from. This is what allows us to go to the next box. What is actually happening? So we say to the brain, I see where you're coming from. If that was happening, I think that your reaction is perfectly appropriate. This, by coming alongside the brain and validating in that way, we allow it to be able to listen for the next step when we say, well, the thing is, brain, this is what's actually happening. What's actually happening is that I'm 35 years old, I'm at a job, and the boss said that I'm not working hard enough. I'm not actually a small child in danger. I'm not being personally rejected. And even if I was, I'm not about to die from that situation. Now, if we skip that box where it says what the brain thinks is happening, and we just say, oh, get over it, it's no big deal, the brain doesn't let go of that. We have to come alongside the brain first and say, what do you think is happening here? Oh, okay, I see what you think. That makes sense. I see how you got there, but this is what's actually happening. And so we actually have to go through this process over and over, and usually it's going to happen after the fact. And the more we do it after the fact, eventually we'll be able to do it in the moment, and it will become second nature to us, just as our current style of reacting has become second nature and reflexive. So hopefully that makes sense for you. If not, you can contact me at ted@connectivitycounselling.com.